What's up, everyone? My name is Derek Carruthers. I'm a swing dance instructor from Sydney, Australia, with a passion for Balboa. I'm doing something interesting today. I'm going to do a technical analysis of some Balboa dances, and we'll see how it goes. Hope you can join me. Okay, so the couple we're looking at today is Alice Jeng and Blake Pearson, and this is from the California Balboa Classic. Before we start, let's just watch a bit of the dancing. Absolutely incredible. What I love about this couple is their stuff is not overly flashy. They generally both stay on the floor, and but it's very clean, and the timing is just superb. All right, so for our analysis, we're basically going to work with four technical elements, what I call the four Ps: pulse, posture, pace, and position. And we'll just talk through them. Pulse. So obviously, the thing that's notable about Jake and Blake and Alice's technique is that they're very smooth dancers. It's almost like a hallmark of their dancing. And so if we look at, say, when they start the song, so this is one area where we can start to analyze a bit of pulse. We'll just use the bottom of Blake's top here to look at. You'll see when basically when the song starts, he starts to get a bit of a pulse going there, but it smooths out fairly fast. Yeah, so he's one of those dancers that just has a just very small, subtle pulse. There are some elements where you can see it manifest. Like another example is that here, where he's going to come in for a break, and you'll just see as he breaks, there's going to be this very subtle pulse through the movement. Boom. Yeah. So if we see there as he comes in, you can just see he maintains pulse there. Boom, bar. Yeah. Boom, bar. Yeah. So obviously, so the pulse doesn't necessarily have to be huge. So he has this nice, soft, subtle pulse. If we're looking at posture, again, we'll look at obviously when you start the dance, we've got that very typical posture. If we look at Alice over here, nice and stacked. And if we look at Blake over here, nice and stacked as well. Just nice upright posture. You can see that they've got that good centered connection, for the start of the dance. And then as they move, all their lines are nice and all their lines are nice and straight. Yeah. And even on their holds, lovely, lovely posture. I think Alice is a great example of excellent posture in the follows. So if we look at this point here, you can see Alice's posture. I mean, just how stacked that is. Just, beautiful, straight shape. Yeah. And if you look at the way that Alice dances, she generally keeps this posture. She's a very nicely sort of poised, stacked dancer most of the time. Yeah, lovely say. But then occasionally she'll break shape, and there's the example there that I found, right, where she doesn't have that beautifully stacked position, and she's created a shape deliberately. And when it's not the default, where you don't have this, you have this lovely tight stacked shape, then when she creates a something that's different, that it's really noticeable. Yeah. So what Alice does to do a lot of the expression in her dancing is that she lets essentially her feet and leg lines do the talking. Yeah. So you can see in this movement here, she's going from beautiful, there you go, beautiful still positions. You see how she's all very upright and stacked. And then she just follows through with this lovely leg accent with a little touch. Dog. Yeah? Wonderful. Next, we're going to look at pace. Pace is basically this idea, the general principle about pace is that in Balboa, movements should flow one to the other. Yeah? But in order to create light and shade in your dance, you can deal with that with doing things like stops. Yeah. So one thing we can all agree on with the way that Blake and Alice dance is that when they dance, it flows beautifully. If we just watch a piece of it, you can just sort of see everything flows together really beautifully. Yeah. But we do have breaks. Yeah. So we just passed a very significant hard break there. And what I'd say is like when they're breaking for a reason. So we just get to that break moment. Yeah, when they're breaking hard, it's for a reason. Yeah, with this little Texas break. And if you listen to the music, they're trying to hit that little accent in the music. Ba. Yeah, and there was a deliberate stop and redirection. But then there's some great examples of very soft breaks, and there's three kinds here I wanted to illustrate. There is this lovely one where, okay, so this is our center connection of the partnership. Yeah, and you're gonna see Blake at 18, boom, sort of break away from that center connection to hit that accent. Yeah, so let's just look through that. So they're coming around, boop, 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 break. Yeah, and you can see him hit that out moment right there. Yeah, ooh, ah. So that's one sort of softer break, but then he keeps moving through it. It's not a deliberate stop like the first version we showed. Yeah, and then there was another wonderful example of another accent, a break. Again, it's a soft break because he keeps moving at 20, and the idea is he's coming through, and the idea is again with music because the music goes diddle it, diddle it, diddle it, da, diddle it, diddle it, diddle it, da, diddle it, diddle it, diddle it, da, and so that middle one there that we're talking about. The first one he does a little hip break, boom, there. And the second one you're going to notice he's going to do a little drop. So he's going to go through and do this little break here, where in order to accent the movement, he, instead of moving away from his partner, he basically drops. And we can see in the verticality of his leg line here, it's a lot more bent than he usually has it, and he produces a little drop. Yeah. So let's just have a look at that movement there. So we'll just go back a bit. There. I'll show you again. Let's go back to the first break. There. All right, here we go. But there. Dit. You hear on that dit, and you see what he's doing. What I like about the way that Blake is doing it is that he's keeping his torso, which is connected to his partner, fairly upright. And to change his shape, he's changing his vertical shape. He's using his legs to it. He's basically, he bends his knee that little bit harder than normal while still remaining connected to his partner. Yeah, in the top line. Yeah. And then finally, there's a nice subtle one at 22 where he basically he kind of, they're coming around and he literally decelerates his, Alice to this point a little quicker than usual, or just decelerates really quick, yeah, at this point. Yeah, and to hit that accent. Yeah, so they get basically to this point here, and we'll see if we can see that here, and I'll point it out when I see it. So I'll just get back to the original one. So this will be the third one that he does. 1, 2, yeah, see that little pause he did? We'll count through them again. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Okay. And then I think this is where, like I said, they're so smooth in their pulse. You know, one way of styling is to do it with your pulse, but where Blake and Alice really shine is in the last element, which is their position. Yeah, and Blake really plays with that in order to get the effects in his dancing. Yeah. So if we look at, like I said, we had that first version element we talked about here, that little break, and the idea is he, like I said, Alice is here, and in order to create the effect that he wants, he basically breaks from her position, you know. And this, like I said, one of the underlying elements of what I call position is you treat the follower as the center of the dance, yeah. And so as he moves into that position, boom, he's moving out away from her, bah, and hitting that shape there, yeah. And that was the first element I want to show about position, bah, yeah. And then um, and then if we look at, say, something like the swivel breaks into turn later in the piece, so going into these swivel breaks, into this nice little turn. And I thought this was an excellent example of what, you know, illustrating what I call position. I define position as really being aware is that wherever the follow is, you treat as kind of the center of the dance, and you generally try to keep the follower closer to that center than you, basically. And you see as they're going into these swivels, you know, Blake's got Alice in the swivels, and they're treating her as the center of the dance. And when it comes to do things like this complicated turn move, see how Alice stays where she is, right? Alice stays where she is. And Blake, I said he started here. And you can see by the end of the movement, boom. You know, he's moving, he's doing that effect. What I talk about is keeping the follow central, and he's basically making up the space. Yeah. And another good example of that is, but that's not always the case. Like I said, I think where they see that other example of really, yeah, here we go. Where again, Alice is doing the very difficult job of doing all these rotations. Yeah. And so it just makes sense. And I think, you know, it's just very Balboa to leave your partner centered, and then you obviously move around them. But it's not always the case, right? Yeah, all nice and centered work. Boom. And Blake, you can see Blake orbiting around her the whole time. So you're moving around, 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 really working that position element. Yeah. But it's not always the case. And then for effect, when you move your partner into away from you, it now is not the, you know, like the normal thing. It basically has special effects. So here we are. We're keeping our partner relative to the center point. So Blake's keeping Alice, relative to the center line, closer to the line than say he is. And then when it comes time to like shine her out, he stretches and then sends her away from that center point. Yeah, and as a result, you get this great movement. But you also see that what he does is he also moves away from that point. She doesn't make her do all the work. So this is a good example here. Here you see Alice is generally moving around that green line, that center line, right? There's a good example there. It's around that center line. She's closer than say he is. And then when it comes time for an effect move, there you go. She's sticking around that center line, right? He's setting up for the send out to basically send her partner out, which he does. Out she goes. But then look what Blake does. He kind of counters that, and that's what I do love about this move. He counters that move, so she's heading away this way, and then he's countering that evenly on the other side. Yeah. So even when you got to send your partner away, leads, also think about making the space evenly with your shape in order to, because Balboa doesn't move the follower as much as you think. Yeah. And then you can see Alice adding additional effect to that by accenting with her leg, taking that movement all the way to the end. Anyway, that concludes our summary. I hope you liked it and I hope you got something from it.